secondary school, high school, in this building, and very soon expanded to the college. Once she decided that it should grow into a 4-year college, she needed property. There was not enough room down here. So she began looking at the properties in this area, and there was a school that, do you know where, what's his name, Ed
Okay.
Rugari Hall, do you know where? It used to be called Gaiac Hall. Down there was a school called Mrs. Gray's School. That property and another property became available. And she convinced her cousin, who was a fairly wealthy Catholic gentleman named James Butler, to help her buy the property. So they bought the property and they began the buildings. Very small buildings to begin with. You saw a picture of Butler Hall, it was very small. St. John's was very small. But in no time, the college began to grow. And we have a famous advertisement that Mother Butler placed in the newspapers when she was starting the college and recruiting for Catholic women. And she said, the time is past when women's education, go ahead.
Was just for the domestic scene.
That's right.
That
That women should be
leaders in
trained
society.
in law, in science, and in medicine. And the time when women are helpless and dependent is long past. So she had a goal for the college that was of a excellent education, superior quality. And the college grew and grew and grew. And you ask, well then, why did it stop growing? We could probably give you many, many reasons, but I mean, a long time to explain the reasons. But principally, it was because in about the 1970s, these very large, well-established, and wealthier men's Catholic colleges opened the doors to women. So the Catholics began to have co-educational colleges, which they never had in the earlier years. So, for a lot of reasons, the women chose to go to the colleges that were co-educational, often where their fathers had gone to college. And eventually, there became less and less need for separate Catholic colleges and universities for women. So that's when the college closed and sold the property to EF. But in the course of that 100 years, many, many Catholic women were educated, became leaders in their community. Many of them. We had one was the Secretary of Labor in the United States. We have lots of women graduates who over the course of that 100 years made a great difference in politics, science, medicine, in their families, in their communities, and they contributed at their family level, at their local level, at the state and the national level. So that 100-year history remains in our memories and in the property that you now walk every day back and forth on your campus. Yes?
I have a question. So, 100 years history, if there is any book published about that?
Well, we published several volumes at the closing, and they were not, they were published by us for our alumni. Yes?
We have extended essay. It's a specific assignment for International Baccalaureate for 1,000 words. And students write extended essay in English or history or science. I wonder, I see such a rich material for extended essay for students, maybe for next year, to write about Marymount Convent, about women who graduated and what exactly they did.
Yes.
And I mean, subsequently, after this extended essay could be submitted, I see a possibility to publish book. Like, to deal with real publishers these days, not necessary. We can self-publish it. It's not very expensive. And I think there could be a few people who are interested.
Well, all of our archives history are in the library at Fordham University, and the students would have access to that. If they went down to Fordham University and had access to the archives, They could go through the whole history, who the graduates are, what the courses are that were taught there, anything they wanted to do about its history over 100 years.
Okay. What about Tarrytown Historical Society? Or
They will have
Hudson?
some.
They will have some
They
too.
will have some, but
But
not
Fort,
as much as...
main body is at
That's
Fort.
right, in Fordham.
There's also a book that was published before we closed in 2007, and it's called, I think it's called Good Teaching. The dean asked about, I think about 15 of the faculty wrote their best experiences teaching here for the years that they were there. It's a very nice book. We have copies of that by faculty members.
Yeah, I wonder if there's any way EF can have this book.
Sure, we can give you some of those.
You know, how I see it in general, I did not know about history of Marymount campus 2 months ago, but every day during these 2 months I learn a lot. And I have an impression I have like a bridge between cultures that we have now on campus and what you did in past.
Right.
And maybe we should think about enforcing of this feeling
That's
somehow.
right.
And
Right,
maybe it could be interesting not only for you and us, but for people outside.
Sure. Because part of the, when the students at the college wanted to study abroad, which was a traditional thing, we were the first college that allowed that to happen here. So they built they went to the schools in Paris, London, and Rome, and opened those schools in order for the students to be able to have a place to go when they were studying abroad. So the international connections were also very strong. And those schools still exist, Marymount in Paris, in Neuilly, and in Rome, and in England, in Kingston. In Kingston, I think you have some connection with because they have the IB program there. I know the EF people have been connected with them. But the international connections are very strong, which would be wonderful with this group of students to see as part of their background as you're walking around, as we say. Right?
Now, the next thing you asked us to talk about was ourselves. So, Dave.